Hello, good evening. Welcome. I am Juliana Kawauchi from Let's Study Eikaiwa, and I know it's been a long time, but I am back with one more video, and this time for EIKEN Grade 2. Today, we're going to work task number 2, which is the independent writing, the one in which you have a question, and you should answer that question and present reasons to support it, why you chose, it's your opinion. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to give you some advice on how to structure your paragraphs and some ideas, okay, some keywords that you can use for your writing so it can run smoothly and clearly. And if you guys have any questions, just drop them down in the comments and I will be more than happy to reply, okay, to give you guys a feedback. So let's get started. And again, thank you for watching. Let's understand the task. This is one of the most important things, okay? So the first thing you should do is read very carefully and make sure that you do understand the topic, the question. After that, you are going to look into the 3 points and choose 2 of those 3 points because you must write about at least 2. If you want to write about all 3, that's fine. If you want to write about something different, that's also fine, as long as you answer, as you stick to the topic. Okay, so the 3 points given to you in the test, they do not have to be used, but they're very helpful because during the test we are being timed, so they can be helpful to come up with supporting ideas more easily. After that, right, once you have chosen your topics, your points, you are going to think about a reason, examples to support the chosen points. Okay, so you are always going to give the reason and give an example to support it. Okay, additional information. Second reason, additional information. And remember that you should write something in between 80 to 100 words. Okay, now let's go a little bit to the structure of our paragraphs. We're going to work with 4 paragraphs. Okay, the first one is your introduction, in which you are simply going to restate the question as your opinion. You are going to decide whether you agree or not. Okay, so you are going to use some of the words given in the topic, okay, and restate it. So look at it, an example here. Our topic: do you think governments should spend more money on space exploration? So very simple. You're going to decide if you think they should or if you don't think. And one thing, don't start with yes or no. Start with I think or I don't think. Just like my example, I think governments should spend more money on space exploration. This is our first paragraph, okay? I'm just going to restate the question as my own opinion, okay? After that, we're going to move on to our second paragraph and we're going to present, to give our first reason and provide some examples. So I should write something in between 3 to 4 sentences. And here, I would say that the keywords to introduce your second paragraph could be either first or to begin with. They are pretty much the same, okay? So use them to introduce your first idea. After that, you're going to move on to paragraph number 3, to our third paragraph. And here, you're going to introduce your second reason, okay? And add 3 or 4 sentences to support, okay, your opinion. Here you could start with either the transition word second, or in addition, which show that you are adding more information. And our final paragraph, this is your conclusion. So you should write 1 or 2 sentences and you're simply going to restate again your opinion, okay? And you should start with, for these reasons, I think, or for these reasons, I believe, and restate your introduction very quickly. Well, I'm going to give you some examples, and we're going to work on a writing passage with the idea that you agree, and another one with the idea that you do not agree with the topic. Well, as I said before, our topic, do you think governments should spend more money on space exploration? And we have our 3 points right there, okay, which are technology, economy, and daily life. My first advice to you is take 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes just to write down some supporting ideas, okay? Some ideas that will help you give reasons for the points that you chose. For example, when it comes to spending more money in space exploration, we have the topics technology. So maybe you can write about scientific progress. For example, the effects of radiation, okay? Since space has a higher radiation than Earth, okay? We can study that on the human body, and also how maybe because there is no gravity, so how this affects our body, our circulation. So this goes into scientific progress, okay? Economy, I think it's a little bit simpler to write about this, how space exploration can create jobs, because we need engineers, builders, people working in this industry. So of course we will have the creation of jobs, and also daily life, which can help with disaster warnings and communication improvements. Remember that when it comes to disaster warnings, I would focus maybe on weather forecasts, satellites, okay? They help satellites watch the clouds, right? Storms and typhoons. And this can help us by keeping us informed, and this way we can take shelter and prepare ourselves for these kind of events, okay? And also communication improvements. When we talk about the internet, okay, we have wireless internet, phones, cell phones. All of this is used through satellites, okay? So think about those, and then you can choose 2 of those points. Well, let's move on. Now let's go to our actual writing. As I said, my first piece of writing is a yes, I agree with the topic, okay? So here we have, I think governments should spend more money on space exploration. To begin with, space projects are good for the economy because they create jobs, and this supports the growth of new businesses. In addition, space research improves our daily life. Satellites provide disaster warnings, such as typhoons or earthquakes. They also improve communication around the world. For instance, people can use the internet and GPS thanks to space technology. For these reasons, I believe governments should invest more in space exploration. So let's take a look here. Let's break this down a little bit and see how I wrote it. As I said, the first thing I worked with is the introduction, which I restated my opinion by saying, I restated the topic by making it clear that I agree, that I think it's a good idea to invest, okay, in space exploration. I started my first reason with the transition word to begin with, okay? And then I mentioned the topic, the point, economy. Space projects are good for the economy. And I gave some reasons. Why are they good? Because they create jobs. And this supports the growth of new businesses. So that's my reason and a little bit more explanation, okay? Then I added my second reason with the transition word in addition. And then I said that space research improves our daily life. That's my second point. And let's provide a little bit more information. How does it improve our daily life? Satellites provide disaster warnings. And then more, information such as typhoons and earthquakes. And I wanted to add a little bit more, so I used the transition word also. They also improve communication around the world. More examples. I used for instance, which is the same as for example. So for instance, people can use the internet and GPS thanks to space technology. And my final paragraph, which is my conclusion. For these reasons, I believe governments should invest more in space exploration. One thing, do we have to include the conclusion? Not necessarily. If you realize that you are way over the number of words, don't include it. Stop just presenting your reasons clearly, okay? And remember, guys, if you have any questions, if you need any clarification, just drop your comments down in the comment section, and I will be more than happy to get back to you. Now let's move on, okay? And before we start talking about my the essay that I disagree, don't forget to give it a like, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe. Okay, and let's move on. Here, I will do the same thing. I will take a minute or so to think about the reasons why I disagree with investing in space exploration. The first thing is environmental issues, because let's think about debris, right? Space garbage, because when rockets are launched, I think they break into pieces and they release certain pieces into space, and then we have all this space junk. Okay, that's an environmental issue, space debris. Economy, because space traveling requires a lot of investment, a lot of money, and instead of investing in this, maybe we could invest in other areas such as schools, doctors, and transportation systems, and so on, like universities, right? Universities are so expensive, so maybe governments should provide more support for students who want to go to university. And waste of money, okay? What can I say here? As I said before, it's very high, right? The costs are very high to explore space. So, and some rockets, they fail right after taking off. They explode. So this is really literally burning a lot of money. So in some cases, it can be a waste of money. So you have there 3 reasons to introduce into your piece of writing, and you can choose 2 of them, okay? And let's move on to my passage. I do not think governments should spend more money on space exploration for a couple of reasons. First, space projects are very expensive, and this money could be used for important things such as schools or hospitals. For example, many countries need better teachers, doctors, and transportation systems. Second, space missions are risky and do not always succeed. Some rockets cost millions of dollars but fail right after takeoff. For these reasons, I believe governments should not invest more in space exploration. So very simple. we have the connectors there, the linking words that connect my passage, and it flows naturally. And notice that here in my introduction, I used for a couple of reasons. So you could do that for 2 or 3 reasons. At the end of your restatement, you add for a couple of reasons. In my previous writing, I used to begin with. Here I'm using first. Okay. And then I presented my reason and gave some examples. Notice how I used such as to introduce examples. Okay, I could also use like schools or hospitals. And I gave more examples. I introduced, for example, many countries need better teachers, doctors, just to reinforce what I had said before. Okay, and show a little bit more vocabulary. On my previous writing, I said in addition. Here I'm using second. So second, space missions are risky and do not always succeed. And then I mentioned, why don't they succeed? Because some rockets, they just fail right after takeoff. And again, I finished with my conclusion for some reasons. So basically, this is the model that you should follow. And by following this, presenting clear reasons and examples, you will be able to score high in EIKEN Grade 2. And what I can say is practice a lot. I'm going to add, now I'm using this book right here, okay, with my students. It's really good. You guys can get it on Amazon. So you have some sample writings, not sample writings, but you have topics that you can write about. You have the answers and comments in Japanese. There is listening and there is speaking. All right, I intend to work some speaking, but my next video is gonna be about the summary, summarizing a small passage presented in the writing part. Okay, so hopefully I'll be with you guys somewhere by the middle of next week, and let me know if you guys need anything else. Okay, don't forget to like this video and share with your friends that are preparing for EIKEN Grade 2. I wish you guys the best of luck. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.